Hi, everyone. It's Tina Olivero calling from Guardians of Recovery. I don't know why I said calling, reporting from Guardians of Recovery. And today I have Susan Stevenson here with me to have a chat to y'all. She's from London, Ontario, Canada, which is currently an epicenter of a drug crisis. That hub has a lot of, what we have seen trickle out here into Newfoundland and other provinces, but she's really in the core, in the heart of it all, and has a lot to say about what's not working and what's working when it comes to drugs, crime, overdoses, the fallout of the impact on housing and all of that. So we're going to jump into that today. Susan, thank you so much for taking the time to have a chat with everyone and really educate people on what's actually going on.
Oh, thank you for doing this. It's important.
It is indeed. So if you could start by telling us, what your role consists of as a city councillor in London in the heart of this drug crisis, paint the landscape for us. What's actually going on?
Well, I'm a city councillor for an area of London that's most impacted by the drug crisis. And it's a large part of why I ran was witnessing the tragedy that was playing out on our streets, the deterioration of our downtown and core areas, and the impact on people's lives. And I didn't feel we were going in the right direction, and I wanted to get involved and see if I could help, truly help this situation. So I represent the residents who live in that area, whether they're unhoused or housed. And I play a role in making decisions on what kind of services are taxpayer funded and how those services operate, or at least that is, I believe, what part of the role should be.
Right. Now, as we see, most of our regions are increasing in drugs, increasing, therefore, in addiction. And then obviously people are very desperate. And then there's an increase in crime.
Yeah.
That seems to be the trajectory of how it's going. Um, can you tell us in that scenario, that timeline continuum, can you tell us like what are the things that are really the main things that are they're perpetuating this? What's keeping us in this cycle of not getting out? What's in the way? What do you see as the primary problem?
Wow.
Big question.
Um, yeah, big question. But I truly believe that the problem is that there's a difference in opinion on how to solve this crisis. And currently, the goal that our whole community system response has is to support people in their drug use and to keep them safe or safer while they're doing it so that they don't die on our streets. And I mean, there isn't anyone who wants people to die on our streets. We all feel compassion and want to help. And yet there's this emphasis on teaching people how to do drugs safer, making the drugs themselves safer, and and it's sold to us in a way that anything else is heartless. Like if you don't see that this is the right path, then you just don't care about people. And
Mhm.
it's just not the reality. I speak to moms whose children are addicts, who have family members who are on our streets, and they want more um, for them than just a sandwich and a clean piece of foil and a needle, a clean needle. So we get to have these hard conversations around why isn't it working? Why is the situation getting worse in London? And I think it's because the goals are different. The goals of the people who are currently being funded and are driving the policies here, they want substance use supported in a way that honors their human rights and keeps them safe while doing it. And there's an opposition to recovery. That there's this, if you are talking about recovery, then it's stigmatizing people. And
Mhm.
and I think that's the big thing is that we don't want the same things. We don't see the same outcome. My goal is not to have people able to do drugs safely in a compassion club. My
Mhm.
goal is to support people in their wellness journey to getting well and recovering and being free of addiction and mental health issues.
Yeah. Exactly. Same thing happening here and seems to be nationwide. But it is a time of what I call the Great Divide, right? It's this two schools of thought, two camps. And the people in harm reduction are looking at the short term and saying, I'm going to hopefully save a life today. And people who are in the recovery camp are saying, I'm looking at long term. We want to get people out of addiction and into recovery. And because of that, everybody has the same objective and goal is to actually help that person be in the best interest of that person, supposedly. But we are extremely divided, not just marginally. Like it's getting so bad that groups are pitted against each other. We're using language, accusatory language of bullying and things like this, being tarnished as uncompassionate when nothing could be further than the truth. So I firmly believe that when there's opposing forces like this, something much bigger is trying to come in, right? And we can sit here all day and we can dispel, harm reduction. For example, I think that providing people with more alcohol in the alcohol managed program is dangerous because we're not measuring brain activity. We don't know if providing people with more alcohol is doing more damage and therefore taking away their capacity to make a life-saving decision. That's a reasonable narrative to consider. And also, if you're the person providing someone with a needle today, what if you're the person that actually causes that person to overdose and die today? Like, are you willing to live with that? And we're putting workers at risk in that way. So there are two massive schools of thought. But as your button says, recovery works. And
Yes, it does.
I'm a mom who lost her son to fentanyl overdose. I am focused on recovery. I want on-demand detox, on-demand rehab, and long-term sober living homes. It's not that I disagree with harm reduction. I think certain harm reduction tools work on their way to recovery as a bridge to recovery. But right now, the majority of our budget, which is the issue, is being spent on harm reduction you can get a crack pipe, but you can't get into detox or rehab. That seems to be fundamentally the problem, right? So
Yeah, well, I think I do agree with the big divide for sure. And harm reduction, I guess what I've experienced over the last couple of years here in London is that the harm reduction, that this focus, as you said, on short term keeping people alive, I do believe that there's a drug user rights philosophy hiding behind that because they're using the harm reduction of keeping people alive in the short term because that's publicly acceptable. Like everybody gets behind that. But if you
yeah.
go deeper, there's a drug user rights push there. And so I think that's what needs to come out is that I don't believe we do have the same goal in the end. And clarity around that will help the public understand why some of us are questioning this more radical harm reduction approach.
Right. Yeah, there are definitely other agendas behind this. The right to use drugs, also, pharmaceutical companies. There's many different people making an awful lot of money keeping people addicted. For example, the drug den shelters that are happening, they're getting paid by the government, taxpayers' money, $120 to $200 per night per person, making, $10,000, $20,000 a day in these shelters. That is a massive, massive money-making machine. Those people make profit keeping people addicted. That's wrong.
Yeah.
They should have oversight. They should be incentivized to get people back to recovery and out. That would have integrity. That would be ethically and morally sound. But right now, there is no honor in keeping people in a system with a pillow, under their head for the night but keeping them in a system where they never ever come out. Even social workers, I heard them say, once they get in, they never get out. Like the whole mentality is off. And we even had someone in our Department of Health yesterday say, Tina, we are harm reduction. It's like it or not, this is who we are. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but we are the people, the government, Department of Health, you work for us. And we are not harm reduction. We are wanting our people to get well so that we don't have crime in the streets, so that our streets are safe. Like at some point, we have to put the people first. We have
Absolutely.
we have to say the majority rules, um, and we deal with the few. Right now, the few rule over the majority, and
Yeah.
that's wrong. We've been too complacent. We've been too, close-lipped. And for people like you, the reason I wanted to interview you is because you're one of the people who was courageous enough to actually speak up and say things, as they are occurring. I'm sure in London, same thing here in St. John's, Newfoundland. I've been speaking up, and there are some backlash, of course, with that, with people who are advocating for harm reduction. But let's dig deeper into harm reduction and see if it actually is reducing harm or not, right?
Yeah.
So I think naloxone, for example, is a great tool to bring back someone from, you know, a drug overdose, but it works with fentanyl and it doesn't work with cocaine. Right now in Newfoundland, the leading cause of overdose is cocaine. So that naloxone kit works for a small percentage of people, and it's very, very important for those people, but it's not the number one killer or problem. And we also have people saying, like you said, here's your kit, start small with these drugs. Well, right now we have an influx of killer drugs like protonidazine that is an instant killer. There's no starting small. We have two 14-year-olds and a 17-year-old who have passed away instant death from protonidazine. So, and other variants like that are instant killers. And often these kids are not in addiction. They're just like a 14-year-old kid at a party trying what they think is Xanax or Dilaudid. And it's put in a pill press and they die instantly. People don't realize in the harm reduction camp that those posters are super dangerous because you're teaching a 14-year-old to start small with a pill that's going to kill them. That's Russian roulette, basically. So wrong messaging, wrong communication, wrong direction. So there's a lot to be fixed and dealt with there. Anything else that you see?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of focus on stigmatizing, and certainly I don't want to stigmatize anyone who's addicted to drugs, but I do think there's value in stigmatizing the behavior. I think it's part of the prevention piece, and by putting out posters with bright colored pictures about how to inhale instead of inject, and how to, as you say, start small and not do it alone. I don't think it's a good message to send to our young people or to other people. I don't think they realize how deadly, how dangerous this pathway is.
Yeah, until you've actually had a child yourself who has died from it. Like people think, oh, these are kids that are troubled kids. I had a son who was an honors with distinction student, and he never had behavioral issues. And he got addicted to weed. Weed right now is genetically modified. It's blowing kids' brains out. We have 4 times more psychosis in hospitals right now because of the current legalized weed. And the manufacturers of weed are genetically modifying it to be stronger and stronger so they can sell more. So there is a money factor behind every one of these issues that are harming the public, and there's no oversight.
Yeah.
Like I worked in the oil and gas industry for 3 decades. Everything was about safety, a safety protocol. The number one thing and the highest expense focused on keeping people safe. And we had an objective of 0 incidents. I'm shocked that the health system does not have a zero incidence oversight for overdoses and overdose deaths. I'm shocked that they don't even know how many we have and they're not reporting it. I'm shocked that we don't have a system of oversight in our shelters that say, you know, we actually are counting the number of people who get well from harm reduction or get well from recovery. Like there is nothing. There,
There's nothing.
there's no matrix whatsoever. It's like an absolute crapshoot. And when that's happening, um, there is like you said, there is a determinant behind it.
Mhm.
Like I'm looking at 5,000 people on Suboxone right now. We have a population of 500,000 people. There's over 5,000 people on Suboxone. My son, Ben, asked for recovery and he was sent to the Suboxone clinic instead. And that's wrong.
Mm.
So what are we going to do about it, Susan?
Well, I think this is part of the process is talking about it.
Yeah.
Because here in London, Ontario, at least, talking about it is considered dangerous to the agencies who are currently providing services. There is I just wanted the budget, not even how the money's been spent, but just a four-line budget on the millions and millions of dollars that we provide. And it was considered disrespectful to the agency and causing reputational harm. And this isn't even, like you said, what about guidelines and licensing and safety checks and ensuring that people are safe in these shelters that we're funding?
Yeah.
We funded one and they didn't even have beds when they opened. It took 6 weeks before they had beds, and it was winter. We had women sleeping outside. Some of them aren't open 24 hours. So people are put back out on the street, or there's a lottery to see who can come in each day. There doesn't seem to be a willingness to really look at what is serving the people who need it the most and the communities who are so negatively impacted by, as you said, the price of addiction. For many of them is having to sell their bodies or sell drugs on a daily basis just to avoid withdrawal.
Yeah. Well, thank you for speaking up and asking for the budgets. That's critical. I did the same thing yesterday. And if that doesn't work, we have a Canadian Taxpayers Federation that is more than willing to get that information on your behalf. They have lawyers to work on your behalf. And they also will ATIP, whatever information you need to get from the government.
Oh, good to know.
Yeah, so I would recommend anybody who's having difficulty to do two things, because everything else is corruptible, but the Auditor General may not be corruptible. And Canadian Tax Federation, um, they will look into it and they will assign people to find out what's actually going on. They're nonpartisan, they're not involved in politics in any way, they're an independent agency, and
Yeah.
that's what they're out to do. So I'm so upset by the fact that people have done that to you and said those types of things to you. I can understand it if you're a drug dealer or something, you're going to get upset, they're going to get upset. But when you have people working either on council or in our government agencies that are taking this type of stand, that are saying we're harm reduction no matter what, that has gone way past the point of public service. You are no longer a public servant if you are doing that. You're no longer working in the interest of the people. You're actually working in the interest of the money behind that initiative.
Yeah.
And that has to be called out. And I'm so glad you're speaking up.
Yeah, it does have to be called out because we were elected to represent the people, right? The people who need the services, who are addicted on the street, and the people who are in the communities, within our city. And
Mhm.
yet, my voice has been attempted to be silenced by my fellow colleague counselors and by the leaders of the social service agencies that we are taxpayer funding. So the residents and the people of London, their voice is being silenced or attempted to be silenced by taxpayer funded agencies that are looking after these services. So this is a real issue. And the fact that we can't talk about it, I've been formally reprimanded once and had my pay taken away for 30 days for
Well,
asking questions persistently on the issue of homelessness. So the integrity commissioner said that even though my words and tone were moderated, the persistent questioning on the topic of homelessness was experienced by the senior management of our city hall as harassment. And we've got, I know it's crazy, we've got counselors and the agency leaders saying, protecting, in a sense, these social service agencies and keeping them so that we can't see what they're doing with the money, what are the requirements, why are we not having inspections and accountability? What is the fear around taking a good hard look at something that matters to everyone?
all funds should be publicly disclosed first and foremost. And anybody who says that's a classic diversion tactic from someone who doesn't want to take responsibility or accountability. Those people should be investigated. And if they're found to be contributing, aiding and abetting to these programs killing people, they should be let go from their position and charged accordingly. Like,
It's going to be a serious issue here because it's been going for a few years now. And the amount of, um,
we're starting a class action suit here because
really,
all the parents have been, we have a litany of dead people. Like since Ben died, we have another 120 people who have died. Like all these people dying, the cost is human life.
yeah,
Cost of keeping all of this going is people's lives. And if someone in your council is, stopping you from seeing the basic numbers, those people need to be held accountable. And things like class action lawsuits by parents and family members is an excellent way to go, because once you take a class action lawsuit and you take these people accountable, not only is every program and agency looked into, but so is every counselor and government agency that
really,
ticked the box and said, yeah, we're going to approve this funding, and it led to this person's death. Like there's all kinds of things that can be done, public inquiries, that sort of thing. And we really have to they're taking 7 steps, we have to take 9.
yeah,
And anytime there's resistance, you can be sure that is a pocket where something I call it skullduggery. There's skullduggery going on in the equation. And that's exactly where to look, because it's in those pockets of resistance that is telling us clearly there's something going on. They don't want to show us budgets. They don't want to show us numbers. They don't want to tell us how much money is spent on, crack pipes and kits,
yeah,
instructions that say 1 to 10, here's how you do drugs and all this stuff. Like they're afraid of being called out.
yeah,
Now, my message to all people in government, all municipalities, is the tidal wave of change is coming.
it is.
You don't want to be on the wrong side of this tidal wave, because you are going to get pulverized by that wave when it hits. And we have a national, I think it was yesterday, they just decided, not to renew the contracts for safe consumption sites and things. So
Mm-hmm.
all of those things are going to impact, and all these people who want to have safe consumption sites and legalize drugs in other provinces, those people are in for a rude awakening.
Yeah. And I think that was safer supply, the contracts for the safer supply or the dilaudid prescriptions.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So hopefully our days of supplying hydromorphone and all these other things are over, because as we know, it ended up in schools with kids overdosing. There is a price to pay. It's time for parents to stand up, take class action lawsuits against all of that across the country, and say, my child died at the hands of your program, and that's wrong.
Mm, yeah.
Someone has to be held accountable for the death. We have 50,000 people who have died from overdose in our country. It's bigger than COVID-19. It's bigger than anything. And
Yeah.
we are having elections, and nobody's even making it the top priority in the conversation. That in itself will tell you how much corruption is going on.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a deep rooted problem, that's for sure. But
Yeah,
I do think you're right that there's a tidal wave coming, and that when the public starts to understand this a little bit more, because I think there was a trust factor there of, oh, harm reduction sounds good and putting a lot of money towards this crisis for sure. But as they see that the results aren't happening, they
yeah.
do want to know why. And when they understand the more deep rooted problems, I think we will see change.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everything is under the umbrella of compassion. And now
Yeah.
all of a sudden we see how manipulative it was to use that word compassion. There's
Yeah.
nothing compassionate about putting 9 men to a room, having rapes occur and everybody on drugs and doing crack in the driveway and it becoming a center for people to sell drugs and getting young boys with mental health issues indoctrinated into being drug mules, watching, that's actually my son experienced what being there when someone was murdered. He found someone hanging on the side of the building,
Uh,
committed suicide. These are what's going on in the drug den shelters. And we are putting people in there with no oversight,
yeah.
calling it compassionate. Like, I am absolutely mystified how people are getting away with that.
Yeah, yeah, it's tragic. And the stories you're telling, I mean, they sound horrific and very isolated, and sadly, they're not. I hear so many stories like this of how things are going so terribly wrong.
Yeah. Well, since Ben died 2 years ago yesterday, I take two, three calls
Mm,
a day, as you would as a counselor. I just stepped in and formed this national nonprofit, Guardians of Recovery, taking two, three calls a day. So I'm down on the ground talking to parents every day. And it's, oh, my son is in crack psychosis and stabbed his mother, or a grandmother calling in, or someone calling me and say, Tina, I'm in psychosis from crack, I just burnt my parents' house down. This is rampant, this is every day, and you don't have to look any further than the crimes happening in their streets and how many businesses are shutting down as a
mm,
result of this. And the one thing that people need to recognize is the drugs are creating the addiction, because the drugs are so, so, so strong right now. There's
yeah,
no, trying this and getting out. It hooks you just like that. It's super powerful. There's no
yeah,
regard for human life in the equation. It doesn't matter if a bunch of people die on the way. They recruit these people. So the drugs create the addiction. The addiction creates all the crazy kind of crimes,
yeah,
breaking into banks and everything else, like daylight, home invasions, daylight business break-ins. And that crime then also creates a housing crisis. Like,
yeah,
people have to realize that it's the drugs to the addiction, and from the addiction to the crime, from the crime to the housing,
yep,
in that order.
yep,
And once we get that flat, we can actually start to solve this thing.
yep. That sounds good. And that's a big nut to crack, right? To have people start talking that it's the drug crisis really that is at the center of this, rather
Yeah.
than keep calling it homelessness.
Yeah, and when they legalized fentanyl, like 2.5 grams of fentanyl in
Mm,
BC, for example, which is, by the way, enough to kill 1,200 people.
mm,
So you can have enough on your person legally to kill 1,200 people with fentanyl. And we're expecting people not to manufacture and traffic it. Well, where do they think it's going to come from? They think it's going to drop out of the sky. And all of a sudden, magically, I just have fentanyl in my pocket. Like, that is absolute insanity. You
yeah,
are you are setting the country up to fail. This is like so basic common sense. A plus B equals C. And they're overstepping all of that in order to enable a drug crisis in Canada. And people are getting so rich of this. Masses of people got
yeah,
when weed was legalized, and masses of people got rich when drugs were legalized, and pharmaceuticals are off the charts with things like Suboxone. It's like, we're going to get you hooked on one side with benzos or whatever.
yeah,
We're going to get you on the other end with the antidote. You're going to go on opioids over here. We're going to get you with Suboxone over here. Like, they got the whole thing sewn up. Susan.
Yep, it does seem that way. And we're lucky in Ontario. Last April, they came out and said that they supported the Alberta Recovery Model route. That even though the Chief Medical Officer of Health was recommending the Vancouver model of decriminalization and expanded safer supply, our Premier came out and said, no way, we are
Yeah,
not doing that.
thank God.
Thank God. But even within this province, we've got the public health that still supports the Vancouver model. So
Yeah,
even though the politicians and the party leading has said recovery, there's a battle between the public health and the politicians. And I'm seeing now that it's true at the municipal level as well, that
wow.
the municipalities are pushing back as well.
I wonder why. I wonder how they are incentivized to keep thinking that way. Is it because they don't want to look wrong, or is it because they're being paid off? Because I saw a bunch of studies in the United States where people were getting paid per Suboxone subscription. I have no idea if that's happening here in Canada,
Really?
but they were being incentivized for keeping all that going. There's a
Yeah.
reason. I don't know
There's a
why.
reason. I
I
think
don't,
the reasons are different too for different people. And
yeah,
a lot of it is being ill-informed too. That there's the public not being informed on this issue is
yeah.
working to their advantage, right? Because if people knew truly what was happening and where their taxpayer dollars were going, there would be outrage.
Yeah. I just start asking questions like, do you have an addicted child? No. Are you doing drugs? Yeah. Okay. Well, there's scenarios in there that are influencing your decision. Is everyone around you a harm reduction activist? Are you indoctrinated into this? Yes. Like, these are the things that we have to look at and say, what the hell is going on? Why do you have this perspective? And somehow come to terms with it. Like, I wrote an email yesterday and said, but what if I'm right? What if I'm
Mm,
right? What if I'm actually right about this recovery? Let's go to recovery first and use harm reduction as a bridge. What if I'm right about that? How would that change things?
mm,
And it's
yeah.
like, you know,
Yep, it's powerful. Same with accountability. If you really believe that your programs are great and you're doing great work, accountability is a chance to show off your success. So
absolutely.
when accountability is seen as dangerous,
Yeah.
it does throw off warning signs, right? When I had my accounting practice, I dealt with all kinds of charities and nonprofits. They would happily show you the books to show you what they could do on a shoestring budget. I
Exactly.
mean, it should be an opportunity to shine. And when there's outrage and fear around a light being shone on what they do, the services they provide, and how the money is spent,
Mm.
it's an indicator that we have some work to do.
Yeah, well, when it comes down to the fact that I'll lose my job if I don't believe this, that's a problem, and that's happening
It's a
Canada-wide.
problem, yeah.
I'll lose my contract if I don't believe this. That's a problem. Oh, I'll lose my, acceptance from my peers if I don't accept this. Well, screw that. Like, be a courageous Canadian and stand up for the future of our kids, because it could be your kid or it could
Yeah,
be your grandkid that is going to hit this line. Invariably, 1 in 6 kids, at this point are going to have cannabis use disorder. That's the statistic. We have a rampant addiction in the country. If we don't nip this in the bud, like what we're talking about, on-demand detox rehab and sober homes and drug
yeah.
dogs at every port, if we don't do those 4 basic things, this country, not only is it going to hit us economically to the point of decimation because our healthcare just cannot cope with it, but the fallout of families who have endured such loss and have no confidence. Like, if things don't change here in Newfoundland, I'm moving to Alberta. Simple as that, because they're the only ones making sense.
Well, there's a lot. Well, Saskatchewan and Ontario went in on this Alberta recovery model. So if we can actually get it implemented, but here I am, a city councillor in a province that has said this is the direction they want to go. And look what's happening to me, even though our province supports it. So I agree. There's a lot of people looking to move if this
Mm.
doesn't change because it's like a cancer in our cities.
It
It's
is.
growing and it's affecting more and more people in a truly negative and life-changing way. And so
Yeah.
it's a crisis.
Your kid has to deal with needles going to school. Your business, hey, you have to walk out into the streets into, you know, clouds of weed smoke and, whatever else. And we just don't want to operate that way.
Well,
We
it's
don't,
not healthy. It's not safe,
yeah.
and it's very traumatic for people, even to witness
Mm,
the devastation on our streets and to see like people will call me and say, we wouldn't leave a dog like that.
yeah,
Why are they not getting help? And it's a
exactly.
very good question, right?
People flaked out all over the city streets and on benches. And like my first inclination, having lost my son, is to go shake them, see if they're breathing, call 911, get help right away. But that's not what we're seeing. People are so desensitized. They're just walking past people who are flaked out on the streets all the time. That person could have actually died while you were walking
Yeah.
by. You could have been the person that saved that person's life. Like, come on, Canada. Come on,
Yeah,
people.
come on. And I can't, not be in this interview and not tell you how sorry I am about Ben. I can't imagine.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I feel that every day because I had no aspirations to doing this, and I'm simply a volunteer um, doing this. But I feel Ben speaking through me every single day and
Mm,
telling me what to do. We're doing a documentary on this, the impact on families. We have a recovery magazine. We have a growing group of 6,300 people here in a mass, and we're about to have a province-wide rally. Wouldn't it be great if we had a national rally?
yes,
And
yes, that
everybody,
would be great.
yeah,
Well, it's amazing what you're doing and being a voice for those that need it the most.
I mean, Susan, when you look at it all, at the end of the day, when it shakes down, if we can't take care of our kids, who are we as a
I know.
society? Who are we? If you can go back to your regular job today and you look around the landscape and you look away from the fact that kids are dying in your community all around you, uh, that doesn't say much about who you are as a person. And I
Yeah,
just could not morally or ethically look away. I couldn't even go back to my old job
yeah,
properly and without dealing with this first. So, extreme self-care and keep helping other people until we turn this thing around.
yeah. Amen.
Yeah, amen is right. Well, that's it for me, unless you have anything else to say. I think it was a fantastic chat that we had, and I think hopefully some people who will see it. I actually invite you to share this with your counselors and tell
Yeah,
them I'd like to have a chat with them personally about their opposition to recovery and why they're still in the camp. I really would. I'd like to have them on a show talk like this. I'd like to actually get their perspective and see why they think the way they do. And let's drill down and get to the basis of it.
yeah, yeah. No, it would be good. Although I think most of them would say that they are for recovery, right? Even the activists in the harm reduction say, "Oh, no, no, we're not against recovery, right? This is about keeping people alive until then." But
Yeah.
as I said, there's something deeper beneath that because if we were truly committed to recovery, we'd be talking about it more. That word would be in our response plan. We would have pathways for people to walk out and ensure that we are supporting people along that journey, not just, well, if they ask for it, we can give them a number.
Yeah. Well, dollar for dollar, right? Taxpayers' dollar. I would ask them, if you could spend your taxes on someone going to recovery or a crack pipe, what would you choose? I want to know.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I think the answer is, oh, well, recovery is healthcare, and that's not a municipal thing. But then teaching people how to do drugs safer is like,
They're making up the rules as they go.
exactly,
Oh, it's
exactly.
all
But I
about,
think talking about it's super important. And
yeah.
it does take some courage, especially in cities like mine, where the drug activists are of a very loud voice and are well funded, I believe. But it's just name calling, right? It's name calling. They're going to take away some of my pay, do a few other things, but it's worth it, right? This is a worthy cause,
I
and I
think
do think it's one of the calls of our time right now. Who are we, as you said? Who's going to speak up for the next generation?
Yeah, well, I think the fact that you were reprimanded financially and the fact that you were excluded and the fact that all these things they're supposed to be inclusive and all the rest of it. The fact that they're excluding people from recovery at the expense of harm reduction, I think you have a legal case there. And if I was you, I'd go after them.
There's lots of options. It's
Yeah.
early in the game still. I'm pretty committed.
Right on. Well, that's why I have you here today having this chat. And I thank you so much for being a really courageous person yourself. I'm standing behind you every step of the way. Whatever we can do from here, this is a national organization, Guardians of Recovery. We built it starting in Newfoundland, but we want it to go nationwide because the thing that's going to change this is a national voice.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
it is. Well, thanks for leading the charge, and anything I can do to help from London, Ontario, I'd be happy to do it.
You're my sister in recovery.
There we go. All
Thanks so
right.
much.
Okay, thank you.
Over and
Okay,
out.
over and out. Bye.